Hey, welcome to Lesson 6 review. I'm your instructor, Evan Gertis. We're going to review modules. So where do you find and explore Terraform modules? The Terraform registry makes it simple to find and use modules. How do you make sure that modules have stability and compatibility? By default, only verified modules are shown in search results. Verified modules are reviewed by HashiCorp to ensure that there's stability and compatibility. How do you download any modules? You need to add a module in the configuration like a file, like shown below. So in this case, we're using a module console, and we're specifying the source as HashiCorp console AWS. The Terraform init command will download and cache any modules referenced by the configuration. What is the syntax for referencing a registry module? So whenever we're specifying the source from the Terraform registry, we'll use a namespace, the name, and the provider. So in this case, our namespace is HashiCorp. The name is console, and the provider is AWS. What is the syntax for referencing a private registry module? In this case, we have to specify the host name. So our host is app.terraform.io, and the namespace is example corp, and the name of the module is VPC, and the provider is AWS. Terraform recommends that all modules must follow semantic versioning. True or false? True. We don't want to use modules that are either too new or too old for the version of Terraform that we're running. That could cause problems later on. So we want to use semantic versioning. What is a Terraform module? A Terraform module is a set of Terraform configuration files in a single directory. Even a simple configuration consisting of a single directory with one or more .tf files is a module. For example, vars, variables.tf, main.tf, outputs.tf. That is a module. Why do we use modules? This is a very important concept to understand. We use them to organize configuration, encapsulate, reuse, and provide consistency and ensure best practices. We're consolidating all of our code into a nice, concise, readable piece of code, a block of code. How do you call modules in your configuration? Your configuration can use module blocks to call modules in other directories. When Terraform encounters a module block, it loads and processes that module's configuration files. So how many ways can you load modules? Well, you can do it locally by having a modules directory, or you could use remote modules. So modules can be either loaded from the local file system or a remote source. What are the best practices for using modules? So we're trying to develop a mindset for organizing, encapsulating, and reusing code. So we're going to start writing our configuration with modules in mind. Keep those concepts in mind when you are writing Terraform. And then we'll use local modules to organize and encapsulate our code. We'll use the public Terraform registry to find useful modules. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. If there's a module for creating a VPC and it's provided by AWS, it's probably worth using it. And then we'll publish and share modules. So if you come across something that's interesting, for example, you have a module for creating security groups with specific rules, that might be worth sharing with other people. What are the different source types for calling modules? So we have local paths, the Terraform registry, GitHub. Then there's generic Git resources like Bitbucket, even HTTP URLs, S3 buckets, and GCS buckets. What are the arguments you need for using modules in your configuration? So we really need to have a source that's obvious. That's where the module is coming from, and we use a version to specify a version of the module. How do you set input variables for the modules? The configuration that calls a module is responsible for setting its input values, which are passed as arguments into the module block. Aside from source and version, most arguments to a module block will set variable values. On the Terraform registry page, where you go to find out where the module is, for example, AWS VPC, you'll see an inputs tab that describes all of the input variables that a module supports. Some modules require variables, and some modules have optional input variables. How do you access output variables from the module? We just use module and then the name dot output name. Where do you put output variables in the configuration? So inside your configurations directory, you have an outputs.tf file, and it'll need to contain those output variables. In this case, we have an output variable called VPC subnets that returns the value of module.vpc.public subnets. How do you pass input variables into the configuration? Here's an example. So here we have a variable called VPC name, and then in the module, we're using var.vpc name. So you can define a variables.tf in the root folder. I think that's a nice way of being able to read the variables that are being passed into the module. What is the child module? A module that is called by another configuration is sometimes referred to as a child module of that configuration. When you use local modules, you don't have to do the command init or Terraform get every time there's a change in a local module. Why? Well, when installing a local module, Terraform will instead refer directly to the source directory. Because of this, Terraform will automatically notice the changes to local modules without having to rerun Terraform init or Terraform get. When you use remote modules, what should you do if there's a change in the module? When installing a remote module, we should initialize with Terraform init. There's just a difference here. A simple configuration consisting of a single directory with one or more TF files is a module. Is that true? Yes, it is true. We already reviewed this. So you can have a configuration such as variables.tf, main.tf, outputs.tf, and that is actually a module. When using a new module for the first time, you must run either Terraform init or Terraform get. Is this true or false? True. We just saw this. When installing the modules, where does the Terraform save these modules? Those are going to be placed in the .terraform/modules directory. So here's an example. We have the VPC module in here. And so that's stored in .terraform/modules. And you can also see we have EC2 instances as well. What is the required argument for the module? We always have to specify source, okay? All modules require a source argument, which is a meta argument defined by the Terraform CLI. This is important. Its value is either the path to a local directory of the module's configuration or a remote module source that Terraform should download and use. It must be a string literal with no template sequences. Arbitrary expressions are not allowed. What are the other optional meta arguments along with the source for defining modules? Version. It's recommended to use semantic versioning with modules. We want to specify the correct version to match the version of Terraform that we're using. We can also specify providers. This is a very useful argument. This way we can specify whether we want the module to run in AWS US East 1 or AWS US West 2, for example. We can pass in a map of providers. That's going to be it for this lesson. I hope that you enjoyed this lesson and keep on learning Terraform. Thank you for watching.